Welcome to Wellness Across the Lifespan, project number 2. We're going to be talking about retirees, which is around age 66. And I'm your host, Savannah Phillips. Happy retirement, everyone. Retirement is really something we Americans really romanticize. It's a sort of goal, milestone, and life marker. I remember being a child and people already talking about retirement, and I remember even going to my grandparents' retirement parties. Retirement is seen as a time of transition when people exit the workforce, and the age of retirement is 66, and it seems to have some positive and negative associations. So on one hand, you have more time to enjoy the things you wish to do, and on the other hand, you have a full loss of financial income and also just being older, in quotes, like you're becoming old. The first thing that comes to mind for me at retirement, the word retirement, is golf for sure, water aerobics and country clubs, Florida, beaches, visors, eating dinner at 4:30 p.m., honestly. But I wonder, why is it that we retire at an age when we're starting to lose physical health? And at least that's the way it's portrayed. How can a 65-year-old get the most of their retirement? And what sort of physical shape is a 65-year-old in? And how could they improve that functioning? And what sort of cognitive mental state are they in? And when we're getting old, we think of our memory worsening and recall becoming slower and more. What is the prime mental state of a 65-year-old look like, and how could they maintain that? And lastly, what does their social emotional life look like? What are their primary relationships in their life, and how do they nourish these relationships to their development? And these are the questions I'll be answering and elaborating on in this project. The first one I want to touch on is the social and emotional state of retirees. One of the benefits of retirement is being able to nourish the relationships with those around you. Some of the most important relationships in a retiree's life could be their family, spouse, friends, children, grandchildren, and more. And in a study done titled Retirement, Social Support, and Mental Well-Being, a couple-level analysis, it reiterates how important social relationships are. They are critical for establishing positive states of mind. And it was found that those high social supports in retirement had links to positive mental well-being. And something I found personally interesting was that for women, being in a retirement home and community also improved mental well-being. Additionally, that spousal support had the same effect as well-being on other relationships. In another study done by Ella Kohn-Schwartz, she found the importance of social network in retirees specifically from previous employment. And she found that the connections you make in your workplace were long-standing and in fact shaped social groups post-retirement, which contributes to a fundamental part of a retiree's life, their social life. And the study also mainly focused on how women were building these connections. So I got curious because it seemed to me both of these studies specifically mentioned how women were social gurus and not as much the men. I found a smaller study done in Japan that looked at older men in retirement and their perceptions on engaging in social activities. It seemed that most of them believed that their familial relationships were adequate and that they weren't as interested in engaging with the community. I kind of thought this to be sad because human connection really has no gender, and a retiree's social and emotional development is being able to fully focus on relationships and nurture them. For them and for some people in retirement, that's at the core of their purpose, is their social relationships. And for many humans, retirees or not, connection is such a key element to being human. And retirees get the unique pleasure of exploring that through activities, community service, fitness groups, book clubs, events, and more. For many, retirement is seen as a downhill point, a point of cognitive functioning where things start to take a turn for the worse, and that you are no longer a working member of society and somehow you've disintegrated the brain. And while some of this could have legitimacy, I really think back to a Dr. Hatchett lecture in Assessment in spring of 2024. He said that intelligence holds generally steady over time. And yes, our raw scores of intelligence, like the information we are given, may decline, but we relatively stay the same within our norm group. And there are only some cases in which people already have relatively meager scores of intelligence to begin with. And when they fail to use their cognitive functioning, their score may decrease. What this means is that for normal cognitive people, like, our cognitive decline is going to occur, but how we can ensure that retirees are still using their cognitive functioning is to maintain their relative level of intelligence. A study done by Velez, Cotto, and Moore highlighted that this finding that retirees that retired from higher complexity jobs tended to hold steady in their cognitive functioning. So the more cognitively demanding your job was, the better your functioning would hold steady post-retirement. And another study and dissertation done by Dr. Veal concluded similarly that soft and manual hard labor were related to a steeper decline in cognitive functioning. So these results made me wonder, is your cognitive decline already predetermined by your job? And even though that can be an indicator, I didn't give up hope that there could be a solution for retirees as individuals and how they could possibly improve their cognition. So I began to research on ways to improve cognition. And one study I found was by Dr. Middleton, and it gave promise that physical activity and exercise was a great way to improve cognitive functioning at any age and could potentially lower risks of dementia even. And I will briefly mention that memory is such an important part of our cognition, and when you are at a retirement age and it is seen as the beginning to your decline, it's normal for a lot of individuals to fear diseases like dementia. And that's why providing yourself with information on how to take an active role in your development as a retiree is empowering. And since I mentioned how physical activity can be a crucial way to improve cognition, it's only appropriate that we move into retirees' physical development and what that can look like. I already mentioned that exercise is not only healthy, but could lead to a longer cognitive life. To further that study, a study I found by Ming and Moore in 2024 found that depressive symptoms in retirees were higher the worse the individual's physical health was. As we mentioned, retirement is seen as a mark to the beginning of the decline, and yes, decline is inevitable. And retirees will experience things they realize that they cannot do that they used to be able to, but that does not have to define them. A study done by Haslam and others found that social relationships had a positive effect on physical health. The community engagement is a way to change their perception on how physical health can be important. A personal example for me is my mom, though not at retirement age, but is retired. She does not traditionally like working out. She does it to be healthy, but my mom and dad ended up downsizing and moving into a condo with other people in a similar mindset and time of life as them. Now her neighbors and her work out every morning and they go on walks, and the social engagement can bring about physical health changes. And just to hone in on how important this is, I did find one more study by Stevens and others that found social connections in retirees lead to improved physical health and activities. I think these show just how through a retiree's physical development may be at a declining state, it does not have to be the end. Our book highlights the stages a person may feel about retirement. The first being a honeymoon stage. They feel excited for the potential, for all the free time. But then they begin to face the realities of what retirement may look like and have to adjust. It's important for us as future retirees to remember that we are going through a development that is unique to this time frame in our lives, and that our social, cognitive, and physical health is all changing. And there are ways that we can ensure that we get the most out of our time in retirement and can spend more time in Florida.